Step back in time as reporter Dana Lipkin takes us through Fresno's history.
And we'll learn about 3 of the world's largest religions through their Fresno worshipers.
Plus, why Porterville residents are showering in portable trailers set up by Tulare County. Fresno State Focus is next. Hello and welcome to Fresno State Focus. I'm Jeff Smith.
And I'm Juliana Gomez.
Fresno has been an agricultural town since the beginning of its time. The founders who planted themselves in the city set up for agricultural success. Dana Lipkin takes us back to how it all began.
That's when the family came. And this is when he came alone.
It was just weeks after the Armenian genocide that Jack Gavigian's dad, who was in the U.S., went back to his homeland for his family.
When he went back to Armenia from America in 1914, in 15 he went back to pick them up, and they were all gone, and it was a mess. History will tell you that.
But Gavigian managed to save his new wife.
My dad is there, his mother's here.
The Gavigians are just a small part of Fresno history that started back in 1872.
There are 2 butchers from San Francisco. They're both German butchers, Miller and Lux. And Miller and Lux were looking for land to feed cattle and to graze cattle. And what they did was they took scrip from after the Civil War and they turned that scrip into land.
At the time, if you looked from your left to your right, Fresno was nothing but sand plains. But there was also a green wheat field, which belonged to A.Y. Easterby. This is where Stanford decided to build Fresno as a part of the Central California colony. By 1875, the colony began developing the area and dug hundreds of miles of irrigation canals. A young farmer who came from the slums of Liverpool, England, partnered with 2 other immigrants to help develop the first colony farms at $1,000 a parcel. That was Martin Theodore Kearney. In 1880, Kearney bought himself this 6,000-acre farm in southwest Fresno, where he established his Fruitvale estate and began growing the raisin grape.
Most of this land was dedicated to growing raisins, so whether you lived in San Francisco or New York at the turn of the century, if you looked at your box of raisins, it would have a picture of Fresno on it. So
Kearney was preceded by the Chinese railroad workers and Scandinavian farmers, and followed by Germans, Russians, and Japanese, who all came here to start a new life. Agriculture and diversity, 2 things the Central Valley has always been known for. Dana Lipkin, Fresno State Focus.
So that was it, kid.
The governor of California has declared a state of emergency as the state faces one of its driest years. The drought has worsened over 3 years now, and there isn't much rain. Reporter Martin Vargas tells us how the drought has impacted the people of the Central Valley.
Elida Aguirre has been working this orange grove for the past 35 years. She has never seen it this bad.
There's no water, so there's hardly any work. I lasted a lot of time, 7 weeks, working only 1 day a week.
Aguirre is a seasonal worker. She helps harvest different crops for each season. Winter is orange season. Once the season pays down, she'll move on to the fruit season, if there's any fruit left. Many farmers have already stopped planting crops due to the shortage of water. Instead of making profits, farmers will actually lose more than they will acquire. All across California, streams are drying up, crops are drying off, and local communities are struggling to get enough water. Orange Cove is at risk of running out.
The drought got pretty serious, you know. So, and I know the state was getting involved, where the state was going to start citing people, and, you know, I understand, and I stand corrected, I think the citation that the state was going to be issuing was like $500.
The water shortage affects more than just farming. Cities and towns around the Central Valley are running out of water. Orange Cove is trying to get people to conserve. The city is encouraging people to use water nozzles to save water. If a resident is seen wasting water, the city will issue a fine. The city of Porterville has already run out of water, not only for crops, but also for its residents. Tulare County has bought 26 portable showers for the community to shower because nearly 600 residents are out of water.
When the owner told us that he couldn't keep giving us water, I would cry, and I got so depressed and stressed that my husband told me, "Don't worry, God is going to help us."
The water crisis is something Fresno State has focused on for the past 3 years. Hydrology professor Ji Wang says that drought is a relative concept.
If we didn't have so much farmland, water is probably enough. We now have enough farmland. We have now increased the environmental need for fish in the river. Now, of course, we don't have enough water.
Aguirre hopes that God will bring farm workers enough rain, which will equal days of work. It is not clear if this year's rainy season is going to help with the drought or if it's going to make it worse. Martin Vargas, Fresno State Focus.
Valley congressmen are working on emergency legislation to provide relief for the drought. 6 House Republicans, including Tulare's Devin Nunes and Hanford's David Valadeo, are working with Democrat Jim Costa of Fresno. They are looking to pass a bill before Congress shuts down for the holidays on December 11th. The California Emergency Drought Relief Act is expected to pass a Republican-controlled Senate, but supporters are expecting opposition once the bill reaches the Senate. Religion can play a major role in the lives of many people. There are a variety of different beliefs, traditions, and cultures associated with each faith. Reporter Tia Vance went around Fresno to learn about some of the most practiced religions.
The history of religion can date as far back since the beginning of time, being one of the most influential aspects in the world. But what is it exactly about a specific religion that drives people into believing and following that faith? At Living Word International Church, beliefs are extremely important to these common Christian believers, and with many major doctrines, it seems that what's most important is that Jesus is Son of God, Savior of the world.
Jesus is the one that saved us through the cross, through the blood. Romans 5:8 said, but God commended his love toward us.
For Muslims, they tend to have unique styles and traditions when it comes to their religion. Here at the Islamic Cultural Center, followers can perform their specific rituals and attend the mosque. Reza Nekumenish says that every Muslim must perform 5 salats, or prayers, which is said to be part of the Muslim custom.
The Muslim ritual prayer is very specific. It follows for a certain formula. We recite certain things. We go through certain actions.
Pure line, correct?
When it comes to the Jewish culture, it is said to be one that is rich and diverse, being universally recognized for its work toward the betterment of humankind. This practice is led by a rabbi, an appointed Jewish leader who teaches the Jewish law. At Bet Shalom, located right in the middle of central Fresno, Rabbi Amnon took on the position as rabbi and teaches the congregation the practices that must be followed.
We celebrate the biblical holidays. They're not necessarily Jewish. Many call them Jewish holidays, but they're biblical holidays.
As you can see, religion comes with its own set of beliefs, systems, and even practices. One thing these religious groups have in common is their belief in being okay to be curious about the other. They all welcome any person with open arms. Tia Vance, Fresno State Focus.
A Swedish village, the gateway to the Sierras, and a town where community comes first are all places you can find in the Central Valley. Josie Rea tells us about the significance behind these cities' names and slogans.
History and traditions is important to those who live in the Swedish village of Kingsburg. From murals to restaurants to shops, the Swedish culture is everywhere. June Hess, along with her family, came from Sweden to Kingsburg. She owns Sven's Boutique and says it's the history that brings the tourists to the small town.
Well, we get tourists every day, and every day we get tourists from Sweden, almost every day I should say, and they just fall in love with this town. They think it's really nice the way we keep the Swedish culture and traditions alive.
In Kingsburg, the culture is prominent, even in the food. These right here are Swedish pancakes, and they are delicious. Like other Central Valley towns, Kingsburg's history appears on its town seal. It's the same for Kerman and Clovis. They both have unique city seals and slogans. Kerman looks at the future. You can see it on its updated seal. The slogan used to be Gateway to the West because it was just open land. But now it's where community comes first. Many feel this better represents the town. Olin White was a postal worker in Kerman for decades. He says Kerman's slogan is shown through the community
and brings people together. The ethnic groups are not segregated, as it were. I know they live in pockets here and there, but they all come together as a unit.
The Gateway to the Sierra sign in Old Town Clovis has been there since 1930. To this day, it continues to represent the Clovis community. Many see it as the pride and joy of Clovis. Peg Boss, president and janitor of the Clovis Museum, says Clovis is more than a city, but rather a community of neighbors.
The desire for excellent education came from our early pioneers up in the Sierra Nevada hills. So we still perpetuate those standards, and it's retained our identity and our progressive educational system.
These are just some of the great cities within the Central Valley. And with minimal driving around, you can discover other towns with big history. All these cities in the Central Valley make it what it is, the most unique but tight-knit place to be. Josie Rhea, Fresno State Focus.
Let's send it over to Jody Parkinson and GJ Glutz for a look at what's ahead on Fresno State Focus. Jody?
Thanks, Julie. Stay with us to see why a Valley librarian donated $100,000 to the College of Health and Human Services. And the Tower District is attracting younger, more hip crowds and improving safety.
Plus, why athletes from all over the country are choosing Fresno State as their top pick. All that and more when we come back.
Here to show Fresno State pride? That's a problem. Because you never bothered to show pride in your school, you are shunned by other students. Professors can smell the stench of impending failure on you and take no pity. Even the mass communication students agree you have no future. But all of this could have been avoided if you simply showed your pride for Fresno State.
I am Fresno State.
Fresno State pride. Show it or face the consequences.
Success. At Fresno State, it's no secret. It's discovering new ways to change our world. It's creating opportunities as diverse as our community itself. It's in the distinction of our graduates as they lead us into the future. Success is no secret at Fresno State. It's our mission.
I am and always will be.
I am Fresno State, and I'm going to show you why. Here's the beautiful and newly constructed Henry Madden Library, which has a massive collection. The Save Mart Center, which is our sports venue and one of the best attended in the entire country. We're absolute pioneers in the agricultural sciences, having led to the production of the first university winery and drawing in a diversity of students to achieve academic success over the past 100 years. And you know, I wish I had time to tell you about everything else, but in reality, I think you're just going to have to come see for yourself.
Hi, welcome back to Fresno State Focus. I'm Jody Parkinson.
And I'm GJ Glutz.
These days, people get their new music by downloading it. Many still use CDs, but not many use cassettes or 8-tracks anymore. There are others that love to get their music on vinyl. John Dick shows us where you can get your record fix in Fresno.
Bob has been selling records for decades. 9 months ago, he opened Tower District Records in the Tower District. He thinks the reason that vinyl records have never gone away is because they offer something that other formats don't.
It's the age-old argument of there's more things to do with a piece of vinyl. You can look at the cover, you can read the liner notes, find out who played on the song, who wrote the song. With a download, you basically are stuck with just hearing the music.
One of his most expensive records is the Beatles' Yesterday and Today album. Originally, it was released with the Butcher cover, but the record company covered the album with a less offensive design.
And you can tell that this is just pasted over the original cover because of there's a black sweater mark right here.
This vinyl is worth about $1,000. Down the street from Bob's store is Spinners Records. Spinners has been around in Fresno for over 30 years. 3 years ago, Manny bought the store. Now he hosts a weekly radio show as the Spin Man, playing only records he carries in his store.
And then they called me right down here at the Spinners.
He says there's a quality with vinyl you don't find in other formats.
It's a medium that is a natural medium. The analog wave sound of sine wave sound of vinyl is just as like hearing these automobiles going by, these folks over here talking, that sort of thing. We're using digital, you're using all square wave.
Manny also thinks that the album cover art in a larger format is one of the main things that draws new listeners in.
I have kids from state colleges that'll come in and they won't know the artist. They'll pick it up and they'll love the artwork. Then they'll check out the artist and they'll go, wow, this is great.
It's not a far step from being a collector to a seller. That's how it started for Shane 8 years ago.
I just decided to start a business one day. I took the 4 or 5 boxes of records I had at home and started advertising that I buy records, and it just kind of grew from there. I have about 12,000 records now.
He now sells his vintage vinyl from the second floor of this antique store in Clovis. He has all kinds of records, from old Edison discs to antique phonograph cylinders from the late 1800s. But his favorite things to collect are old 45s, named that because that was the rotation speed they would need to be played at on a record player.
There's a lot of really obscure things out there, bands that only made 145 and there were 200 copies made and that was the end of that.
45s were singles of the time, and because they fit in most American jukeboxes, artists like Jan and Dean and Bobby Darin cared more about writing the next hit than they did about writing an entire album. That was until 4 lads from Liverpool came along, and then they introduced us in 1965 to Rubber Soul.
After the Beatles, most artists started thinking about crafting a record as a whole as opposed to each individual single. Many new albums are being released on vinyl, and a new generation are learning the joys of scouring through boxes of records to find the perfect one. There have been so many requests for a wide range of music that Bob has had to change locations to fit his inventory. He is now building a new store from the ground up. He even plans on having live music in the store. For Bob, the best part of selling records is still the customers.
The satisfaction I get when somebody buys a record and I know that record and I know what it sounds like and I know they're going to be happy with it. Or turning them on to something they hadn't heard before. That's pretty satisfying.
Whether or not you are looking for something new, rare, or near impossible, there is no denying that vinyl is not going anywhere anytime soon. John Dix, Fresno State Focus.
So GJ, I think it's pretty cool how vinyl is still a viable medium. I mean, Jack White's Lazaretto sold 40,000 album copies within the first week, and now it's over 60,000 copies. So
yeah, I actually love the White Stripes. I didn't even know that vinyl records were still around.
Yeah,
honestly.
Right, and it's like I guess the most sold album in like 20 years. So
yeah, that many, that's crazy. I didn't even know they were still around.
It is, I know.
So what type of music do you like to listen to?
I like to listen to all kinds. Alternative mostly. I'm really into Jack White, so I'm a big fan of his. You know what? There's so many. How about you?
White Stripes are my favorite.
Nice, very cool.
Since the city has made efforts to help clean up and restore the Tower District, it has attracted a younger generation of residents. Marina Minas goes to the Tower to show us what it has to offer to the younger crowd.
If you have ever been to the Tower District, you know that the atmosphere there is unlike anywhere else in Fresno.
The younger folk are like, hey, how's it going? You know, and that's nice, that's refreshing. Especially when you see the same people over and over again. You become acquaintances just because, you know, you go to the deli all the time, or you go to the same coffee shop, or you go to the same bar. And eventually you become friends.
Rose Jackal has lived in the Tower since she was 18. 17 years later, she's still there, working at Piemonte's Italian Deli. She thinks she will never leave the area because she has made many close friends there. The Tower has a dark past dating back to 1993 when Kimber Reynolds was murdered right outside the Tower Theater. That tragedy led to inspiration to change California law. Mike Reynolds, Kimber's father, played a huge role in passing the state's 3 strikes law.
I think the Tower is a safe place for young people to live, but I do say this, it's important that everybody pay attention to the world around them. I mean, your personal safety, no matter where you live, whether it's at the Tower District or anywhere else in this city or town.
The tower is filled with many different events and festivities, including the annual Mardi Gras celebration. Places like the Chicken Pot Pie Shop that are known for the best pot pie in town have been bringing customers in since 1956. Bobby Salazar started 17 years ago in the tower and has grown to 4 locations throughout Fresno. The owner says this location is different from his others because of the diversity in the Tower District.
You can walk to everything. You know, if you live here, you can just bounce from place to place. There's grocery store, there's clothing stores, there's, you know, obviously bars and restaurants, so it's a fun place.
The Tower District is full of art and artsy people who create a different mood that you can't find anywhere else in Fresno County. Students are migrating to the Tower District for the friendly, free-spirited community that it is. Tower residents feel that this is a culture that will always be here. As the tower has grown to be more popular, it has also become safer. Marina Minas, Fresno State Focus.
Fresno State's College of Health and Human Services has received a gift of $100,000. Fresnan Patricia Powell made the donation in memory of Faith Ann Searle that will go to support student research. Thanks for being here, Miss Powell.
Thank you, Jody.
So can you tell me a little bit about Faith Ann? I hear she's a go-getter because she's got 5 degrees and...
She was very interested in education. Music was her love. 2 of her masters are in music. 1 is in library. She was just a colorful person. Her diplomas are from SC, and she could tell you all the players, the manager and all the owners' names, and followed them faithfully every Saturday. If you came to our house, you would see her watching SC play.
Very cool. Yeah, so why did you decide to donate to Fresno State?
Well, there was a sizable amount of money, and I chose 6 major charities that I wanted it to go to, and Fresno State was one of them. And
very cool. Yeah, all right. And then I heard that Faith Ann, she lost her job teaching in the Midwest.
Yes, actually she had gotten a couple degrees at Redlands College and decided to try to teach at the college level and went to the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, did a little teaching in Kentucky. And this was during the 40s, and when the war ended and the men came back from World War II, she was aced out of a job, so that's when she came back and got her 3 masters from SC.
Yeah, so there's no stopping her. She got her library science degree.
That's
great.
And applied all over. Initially, she got a job with Clovis Library and did live there for a while, and then Fresno County Library had an opening, so she took that and retired from there in about '94.
Okay, and then Patricia, why did you choose the College of Health and Human Services to donate to?
I went to a function that Fresno State sponsored at the Beauregard's home, and it was called the Silent Garden. And I was so impressed with their presence and all that they were doing at that particular function. And I acquainted myself with Dana Luca at that time. And she and I have just hit it off beautifully, and we've just brainstormed about where money could go and how we could use it. And she's been so helpful to map out a plan that will be absolutely suitable for everyone.
Very nice. And it's going to go to student research. So what do you hope that students get out of it?
Well, where we put the money wherever the need was, and at that time, you know, it could change any time. But I left that up to her. The money is to be used where it's needed in whatever department it's needed in.
Very nice. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Interim Dean Dr. Jody Hiranaka-Jato says she is truly appreciative of Patricia Powell's generosity. So thank you, Miss Powell, for offering the gift and speaking with us today. Sports are a popular pastime for the Central Valley. Our very own Fresno State Bulldogs have a loyal fan base that attracts athletes from all over the country. Kylie Shea Aldridge goes inside Bulldog Athletics to show us why athletes believe they have the best support there is.
Point, Fresno State.
It
It is every athlete's wish to see their family and loved ones, along with tons of fans in the stands, at their games, cheering them on. For Taylor Ward, unfortunately, he does not have that luxury. Ward is a junior starting catcher for the baseball team and is from Chuluota, Florida. This past summer, he made the USA baseball team and has many professional opportunities because of his exposure as a player at Fresno State.
Playing here, the coaching staff and being around the top tier players that we have here has made me a better player.
Fresno State softball has some pretty incredible fans as well. They average over 1,500 people in attendance at their regular season home games, which is more than any team in the conference, and it's also one of the top 10 in the country. Not only do they support their team on the field, but for Brooke Ortiz, they support her off the field as well. Her dad, Joe Ortiz, was everyone's second dad and made everyone who walked into Margie Wright Diamond feel at home. He passed away suddenly right in the middle of their 2014 season. The response the Ortiz family got was pretty incredible, with hundreds of emails and text messages.
First day I stepped back on this field after my dad's passing, I was just overwhelmed with emotion. I couldn't even start the game. I was crying just because there were so many people who...
Point, Fresno State.
It is every athlete's wish to see their family.
I love seeing the athletes get out there and show all the hard work that they actually did in the weight room and on the field and actually putting it on in play and in action. It's a great atmosphere, and I love the people in the surroundings.
If you are anywhere near Bulldog Stadium on the night of a football game, all you can hear is the thousands of fans cheering for the Bulldogs. You can walk into the grocery store, the mall, or the doctor's office on any given day and see someone in their blue and red Bulldog gear. The sense of pride in this town is like no other. It is a tradition that will continue to live on for a very long time. Kylie Shea Aldridge, Fresno State Focus.
So it's pretty cool how we have a lot of international students coming to Fresno State. I think it's pretty awesome that we can allow students to come here and that there's so many sports that they can play.
Yeah,
really.
and they do play. They play a lot of sports. I know for a fact there's the whole tennis team. They recruit out of like South America and Europe and stuff, and it's really a cool thing.
And it's not just tennis. There's a lot of different sports like football. There's a lot of players in the NFL that went to Fresno State, and the baseball team won the national championship.
And also basketball, Paul George too was from Fresno State.
Yeah, Paul George, and then we got, Derek Carr. He's
of course Derek Carr.
Of course, Derek Carr. It's pretty awesome that it's not just football though. We have so many sports, and that our students are very well-rounded.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
There's not quite as many from basketball, but
No, that's true, but hey. And it's our last show.
Yes, it is.
Yes, so we're excited. Hopefully we'll continue the legacy and get better stories. Thank you so much for keeping up with Fresno State Focus. We will be back in January with news shows and great stories.